Welcome everyone to today's TCIA free CEU webinar series, Crew Leader Skills. My name is Bob Rouse. I work for TCIA, and also from TCIA with us today are Stephanie Burnell and Irina Kocharov. Many of you probably know Irina. She's our CTSP program manager, and Stephanie joined us just recently, or what seems recently, to help us in our meeting and event staff. So Stephanie has been helping us set up this webinar series. Today's webinar is conducting an effective job briefing. Just want to take a minute to go over some housekeeping. Your audio has been muted as you entered the webinar. Excuse me. There are some features we will use as we're going through the webinar. So if you have a laptop, your pull down screen is usually from the top for your participant panel. There's a Q&A feature which allows you to ask questions during the presentation. So if you have a question that you're hoping the instructor will answer during the presentation mode, that's where you want to put that question. Once the instructor is done with the presentation mode, and he will then open it up for basically a dialogue session. When we do that, we're going to use the chat feature, which I think everyone's more familiar with in webinars. Using the chat feature, you can raise your hand and you can type questions. You'll be able to chat with other participants and with the instructor. And the instructor will then also be able to look at the chat and answer questions and participate in the dialogue with you and guide through the dialogue. So that's the basic housekeeping. Again, Q&A for questions during the presentation. And when we get into the discussion mode, which we expect to have a lot of discussion mode in this topic, use the chat, raise your hand, and ask questions and participate there. And that's basically the guidance and housekeeping. I did want to go over why free CEUs and why TCIA is doing this. Just with everything going on, we felt having some normalcy and being able to have a dialogue in something that looks somewhat like a normal training would be good for folks. And you know, the need to, regardless of what you're doing, if your company is shut down, it's important to keep working on your skills. If you're in some kind of lower amount of service or you reduce service, perfecting your skills and still providing the same skills is just as important. We're very focused on social distancing right now and what it means to be an essential worker. However, the need to do an effective job briefing doesn't go away. The need for a crew leader to be a leader and have good leadership skills doesn't go away. So we thought it was important to provide this series to keep continuity. And then, of course, also we wanted to provide a way for certified arborists, CTSPs, and folks to get CEUs as well, because that need will come back soon, and probably sooner than most of us are ready for. So I would just like to introduce today's instructor, and then I'm going to turn it over to Travis. Travis has 18 years in the tree care industry. Travis has held positions as company owner, operator, crew leader, contract climber, and trainer, TCIA and ISA conference speaker, motivational speaker, and author of Leadership for Today. Currently, he's the VP of Operations for Chippers Incorporated, a green care industry company based in New England, with services ranging from tree care, PHC, maple syrup, turf care, and garden and landscape. Travis is one of our marquee crew leader instructors. So Travis, I'm going to turn this over to you. Welcome.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's great to do this, and I'm really looking forward to this format and all the great things that this can provide us. I think it's a great opportunity for the everybody to kind of train and get together and kind of know what's going on. So I love the format. I think it's great. And I think a job briefing is one of the key elements to having a successful day or not successful day. One of the big things we look at briefing is, why do we do it? When do we do it? What is it? And where do we do it? That's one of the big things we keep asking, is this essential? Is job briefings essential? Absolutely. I'll tell a story real quick. Happened this year, July 1st of 2019, actually. I got a chance to leave my office here and go out to a job site and work with a crew. And just happened that day, we were doing some crane work. We had a very experienced climber that was doing the crane work, but we had a good job briefing. We stopped before the day got started. Everybody assigned roles. Everybody knew where we were at, the address, where the closest medical facility was. In the event of emergency, who was going to do this, who was going to do this, who was going to do this. It was all laid out in the job briefing. Well, the day went on just fine. We were about halfway through the amount of trees we had to remove with the crane when the unexpected happened and our climber fell. Fell 45 feet out of a tree. And in that moment, when sheer panic took over for everybody on site, they remembered one thing and one thing only. They remembered they had a key role in an emergency during the job briefing, and everybody instantly went into that key role. We had one person calling 911. We had one person shutting off equipment and clearing the way. We had another person providing care to our climber that had fallen, and it was all seamless. And we attribute that back to a good job briefing. We attribute that back to having the what, the when, the where, and the why. So that's why we do job briefings. I've been in the industry 18 years now. Started off in the industry not doing job briefings, really not doing anything correctly safety-wise. I remember back 18 years ago, I was taught to climb using a set of spikes and a saddle and a lanyard and no climbing line at all. You bear hug the tree, you spiked up everything. Removals, pruning, didn't matter, everything got spiked. And then you work the tree from there. My safety gear back then was my hat turned around backwards. That was it. And I progressed through that, and slowly I came into other companies that did things better and more efficient and more safer, and job briefings came a thing. And now I can't imagine going onto a day and not doing a job briefing. So that's kind of the job briefing. But we need to understand the elements of the job briefing. So we've got 6 elements, or really 5 elements. We have location, we have hazards, mitigation of the hazards, roles and responsibilities for the day, and emergency info. That can be your closest hospital, who's going to call 911, who's going to provide care, all of those things. So let's look at location. Location isn't necessarily where you're operating at. So we up here in New England operate on large properties. Sometimes we can have a street address, but operating in the back 40 acres of a property. So our location needs to be not only where the job is, but also where we are on the job. So in the event that emergency personnel need to get to us, we can give them an accurate description of where we are. Hazards are everything from electrical hazards running through the property to this time of year, bees are starting to come out. So bees are a hazard. Right now, all the job orders or job briefings getting turned into me in operations right now all say COVID-19 on them. That's a hazard for us right now. We're actually riding one person per vehicle in the company, keeping our social distance, following all CDC guidelines. We've been deemed essential and critical in both Vermont and New Hampshire. And we're following all those things, but COVID-19 is still a hazard for us. So we have to look at that as how we mitigate that. Our mitigation can be simple as PPE required for the day's job. It could be, if we're working your power lines, that we have the local utility there, putting guards up or guarding the wires for us. So there's all different mitigations. This doesn't need to be a play-by-play exactly how we're going to do the work, just a brief overview. And then roles and responsibilities. I don't like to micromanage anybody. I don't want anybody to feel I'm telling them how to do their work. But it's nice to know when I get up to a job site and I see the job briefing, I know who's climbing, who's dragging brush, who's flushing stumps, who's bucking and limbing, those kind of tasks. It doesn't have to be specific. It can just be climber, aerial worker, ground worker, but it's nice to know where everybody's at. Also, if I'm the climber on the day, I know I've got 3 ground workers, for instance, with me if I'm on a crane job. Before I make a cut, I want to look down, I want to count 3 workers that are on the ground. It's a mindset for me to know to look for them. Then obviously emergency info is just that. 911, your local emergency number, closest hospital, closest medical center, center, those kind of things. But what else? What else do we want in an elements of a job briefing? So at this point, I want to open up a little bit of the chat function. And what else do you feel is important in that job briefing? So those who are not comfortable or not familiar with the chat function, if you go to the bottom of your webinar, there is a chat function. You can click that and just start typing. It'll come to all participants and everybody will see that, and we can start going with that. Job detail. All right. Yeah. Some job details, a good thing to have in a job briefing. You know, what kind of work are we going to be doing? Location of emergency. If you have a set emergency bag, it's great to know where that's at. Pull it out of the truck. Don't leave it in the truck. Traffic route patterns. Absolutely. If we're working near traffic, we want to know the patterns of traffic. All right. Work plan, drag routes, and landing zones. Yeah, we want to designate our work area. We also want to designate our drop zone. For a lot of our work, what we designated our drop zone is the drip line. If you're within the drip line, you're within the drop zone, and you need to know that. And that's designated in the job briefing. All right, drag routes. Yeah, if we're going to come from the backyard to the front yard, I need to know which way to go. Protecting the client's property. That's a great one to go over in job briefing. That's a chance for us to say, hey, you know what? This client here's got sprinkler heads. Let's guard those. All right, let's work around this. Let's work around this potted plant or this laid stone driveway, you know, whatever we have going on. Let's identify those things. We're all on the same page and we all can work together, because it's easy to forget things throughout the day. And if we're all on the same page and we all know it's there, it's easy to understand that. Rigging plan's another good one. I don't like to get too specific with rigging plan. I'd like to know kind of, hey, are we going to be doing negative rigging, positive rigging? Are we going to be doing span rigging? I don't want to get into the ins and outs of the type of rigging, but definitely have a rigging plan. Secondary briefings for new arrivals. Yeah, if the job site changes, we got to start and do another briefing. If somebody else enters the job, we need to have another briefing. All right. Address, nearest intersections is always really good. Energy sources, absolutely, always a hazard. I don't know any job site that doesn't have electrical hazards on it in some form out there nowadays. And all the things changing constantly. Excuse me. Impossible cavities of the yard that have been filled in, like such pools and septic tanks, especially if you're running mini skids or compact lifts or cranes. That's a big one. Your crane setup or even your bucket trucks and compact lifts are only as sturdy as the soil they're on. So knowing those things that are there is great. Bystanders, yes. We do a lot of work at Dartmouth College, and let me go ahead and tell you, they may have some of the smartest students in the whole world, but they don't understand this concept that if I'm above them working and I drop things, gravity takes over, and it's going to fall to the ground, and they're going to walk right underneath that. So you always have to do that. Crew morale, yeah, you want to assess that a little bit in the job briefing. I don't get too involved in that as an element of the job briefing, but it's a good thing to assess. Are we just kicking tires, or are we actually engaged? Those are all great things. Thank you for that input. As you can see, this function allows it really easily for me to see what you're saying in real time. So it's a great way to do this. Weather is another hazard. Absolutely. You want to look at weather if we have weather coming in later in the day, or maybe we had weather overnight and it could have changed the job site from when the salesperson saw it. If you have poisonous plants, isn't that a great hazard to identify? Absolutely. Critical steps of the work. Yeah, if there's a critical step, you definitely want to outline that. You definitely don't want to list that in your job briefing. It could be very crucial. So those are all great things. Awesome. One thing I really want to talk about, though, is this concept of, does it have to be documented? Do we have to document our job briefings? The answer is no. Technically, you do not have to document your job briefings. There's nothing that says you have to document your job briefings. It just says you have to communicate your job briefings. So we enjoy and encourage people to document them, because how do I prove it happened if we don't document it? So from a compliance standpoint, yeah, we definitely need to know it's documented, but is it a requirement? No. However, on July 1st, when we had our incident and our OSHA investigator showed up at the incident, because our work was transported by EMS and local police called OSHA, as they rightfully should, that was the first question he asked is, let me see your job briefing. So if we hadn't documented, I would have had to have each worker submit a written testimony of the job briefing we did, and then to create more work. So I was able to get the job briefing, hand it right to the OSHA investigator, and go from there. But is there a con to having a documented job briefing? I kind of feel there is sometimes. I feel sometimes in our industry, we get lulled into just checking boxes, and we just go through the steps. Another day, another job briefing. Yep, yep, electrical, check. Yep. And we just kind of yep things, all right? We really don't want to do that. We want our job briefing to be engaged. We need to know that it's just part of this, and it's not just going through the motions. So there is a care we have to be taking with documenting things, because like any document, if we do it enough, it loses its point and it loses its purpose. Oh, went too far there. All right. So we need to do it. How do we do it though, right? So I love to hear the opinions of people if we think that the most experienced person should be doing it or the least experienced person should be doing our job briefings. What do you guys think? Most experienced or least experienced? And when I say guys, I mean guys and gals. I apologize. I know we have some females here. I don't mean to exclude you by any means. It just comes out as a vernacular, and I don't mean any disrespect by it. So, what do y'all think about most experienced person, least experienced person doing it? All right. We got some that say least, some say most, both. Yeah, great answers. All right. Could change from day to day. Absolutely. Crew leader, most experience, mix it up. Definitely. All right. Personally, I love the aspect of the least experienced person doing the job briefing with the most experienced person doing the documentation. That way things don't get missed. Because to a least experienced person, everything's a hazard, right? I've been in the industry 18 years. I am no way, shape, an expert or a seasoned veteran. But I know I have a tendency, I get complacent, right? It just naturally occurs. I become lazy. I forget that, that nasty machine out there that takes big wood and makes it really, really small wood when you put it through a feed wheel is a very dangerous tool if you're not having respect for it. I take that respect for granted. So the least experienced person is going to be more fearful. They're going to see more hazards than a most experienced person will sometimes. But having that most experienced person actually do the documentation is key. That's how we know things aren't missed. And this also gives an opportunity for the most experienced person to get the least experienced person engaged and coaching and teaching them on this, right? Do we do check boxes or fill in the blanks? I personally like check boxes. I like having things listed out with check boxes with an open section somewhere on the document that we can fill in things that aren't included in check boxes, because you can't get everything in a check box. But you can get a lot of things in check boxes. And when you have good check boxes that are there, they're more likely to get done versus a comment section, a fill in the blank section that just says electrical hazards. Okay, well, were they above ground electrical hazards? Or were they below the ground electrical hazards? We don't know if it's not said there. So I like to see check boxes. Check boxes also allow you to dictate exactly what you're looking for, and we're going to get to that a little bit later. All right. So I'm a real fan of process. I truly believe we are all creatures of habit. All right. I have my same coffee cup I use every single day. All right. I am a creature of habit. We all are creatures of habit. And when we create a process, we're more likely to repeat the process every single day and not miss steps. So in my opinion, an effective job briefing has a process to it. It's part of our workday. It's part of what we do every time. I know certain electrical companies that we've done work for, they have a job briefing when they start a meeting. They have a safety meeting. We give them and meet with them about electrical hazards. They do a job briefing sitting in a conference room because that's part of their process. They do a job briefing in everything they do. So create process. So when we create process, we have to look at what we're going to inspect. That is what our documented sheet really is what are you looking for? Because people will accept what you inspect. If you just say, I need you to list every possible thing out there and never have a way to actually look at it for quality control, how are you going to know it gets done? But if your crews know what you expect from them, they know what you're going to inspect of them, then they're more willing to accept what you're asking them to do. All right. Humans are unique creatures, right? We naturally want to please people. It's just natural ability. We want to please. We want to do as we're asked. So we should write out our forms very clearly in a process so that people can inspect it. We can inspect it. Our crew leaders can inspect it. Our sales can inspect it. And our crews can accept it. All right. However, hard one here for small company owners, you got to let go. All right. Your crews are not you. You got to let go. You got to give up control. Let go of that rope. In rigging, we all know that heavy piece, if you've got not enough wraps on the porter wrap and it starts burning your hands up, the tighter you grab, the worse it's going to burn you. You got to let go. The same is true with this. We don't want perfection. What we want is 80% correct. So when you build your forms, when you come up with your process for how you want job briefings to be done, accept 80% and then work on the 20%. Don't shoot for 100% because you're just going to be frustrated. And let go. Let your crews help you develop this process. Don't do it all on your own. All right. So we want to keep it simple. We want to keep it clear. We want to keep it concise. But most of all, we want our crews to help build this. We really want our people involved in this process. So as in the position I'm in, I've got multiple crews operating underneath me, multiple divisions, multiple offices. And a lot of times what I'm looking for is I'll roll out an idea and I'll roll it out to the ops managers first, the division managers. Hey, what do you think about this? This work? Yes, no, maybe so. Like it, don't like it. Once we go through our process and we vet our process, then we roll it out to the crew leaders and get their input. Hey, you like this? Do you don't like this? Will this work? Won't this work? We go from there. The times we haven't done this have created huge issues. Great example. Earlier last year, I came to the company in April last year. I'm just about at my year anniversary with the company. And we had been using jet sleds exclusively with our chippers as the clean out underneath. So where that rock tray is on the bottom of a chipper, you open that up after as you chip, as everybody should. And we were putting a jet sled underneath there. Well, we had broken a lot of jet sleds and we hadn't replaced them. Well, we needed to fix them. We needed to replace them. However, I didn't like the idea of going and spending the amount of money we had to spend on jet sleds. So I started brainstorming ideas, and I came up with this idea to use bus table tubs for like a restaurant and use those underneath our chippers, thinking, okay, well, they're pretty good size. They're easy to move. They don't only get so full. You can dump them by yourself. All these great thoughts I had in my head. I was like, yeah, this is a great idea. Great idea. I didn't ask a single person else in the company what they thought. I thought it was a great idea. I thought I'd worked through it all. Went and bought 10 of these bus trays, gave them to the crews. Within the first day, they all were telling me how much horrible they were and how horrible it was making their day because they're having to dump on it constantly because it was getting full so fast. There was nowhere to store it. They couldn't pull it behind them in the snow and all these things that I hadn't thought about because I didn't get them involved in the decision making. I created a process and I came up with this great idea, but I didn't involve anybody. Had I involved them, they had buy-in into this. And they'd been like, hey, you know what? This could work or not work. We could have solved this problem ahead of time. So we ended up buying 10 bus trays. We still have them. Our mechanics use them now. And then we ended up buying jet sleds anyway because that worked. So the case of, I'm a perfect example. I'm not perfect. I try things and I learn. Hopefully you can learn from my mistakes. But we want to keep our job briefing simple. If it's a 6-page document, it's not going to get done correctly. We want to keep it clear. We want it to be very clear. I should be able to look at a job briefing within 5 seconds, gain all the information I need to gain out. If I have to hunt and search for it, like that person at the restaurant you go to and they show you, you ask for their ID, right? And they're like, oh, I got to be carded. And then they go hunting for where your birth date is, if it's an out-of-state driver's license. That's not what we want here, all right? We want to keep it very clear. We want to be concise, not a lot of verbiage. Electrical hazards, above ground, below ground, primary, secondaries, all right? Use vernaculars that we know in our industry that are specific to our industry, but keep it very clear and concise. If you start listing out Z133, index numbers or A300 index numbers, it's going to become very clouded and very inconcise. All right, we want to keep it very simple and very clear. All right, part of this whole thing, though, job briefing is more about your people than just a document. It's about building leadership. All right, your job briefing is the first step in building a leader. Think of any great sports team. All right. Yes, I live in New England now. However, I am not a New England Patriots fan. All right. I'm just not. I'm a 49ers fan through and through. Born and raised outside San Francisco, huge Joe Montana fan. And one thing I learned early on as a kid watching Joe Montana is he was a leader in the huddle. And in football, the huddle is the job briefing. It's getting everybody on those 11 players on the same page for that next play. And they huddled after every play. Pretty important if the NFL does it. But what it did is it was a leadership thing. It was Joe leading the team. It was Joe giving the play. It was Joe giving the assignments. It was Joe giving the job briefing. And that's the same thing we're looking for here. Our job briefing is a chance for people to step up into leadership, to take charge of the job site, own it, make it theirs. So one of the big things I love about going to our job sites when I go visit jobs is I love that crew leader coming up to me like, hey, stop. You can't come on the job site yet. It's my job site. Let me help show you the job briefing. Have you sign it? They own the job site. They take ownership of it. They make it theirs, and it makes them good leaders. But we don't want to expect perfection, right? 80% is what we're going for. We never want to accept excuses, all right? One of my favorite leadership books is a book called No Excuse Leadership, and it's all about that. It's about owning your leadership decisions, not making excuses for them. And then lastly, we really want to teach and coach, not do and tell. I know a lot of company owners, they get frustrated at this step, and they just want to step in and just do it for the crew and tell them how they want it done instead of stepping back and watching the crew do it a few times and possibly even fail. I'm a huge fan of failure as long as it's in a safe manner. I'm not a big fan if people are going to fail and get hurt or damage property or equipment. Not okay with that. This is not the time to like, hey, yeah, let's try some new crazy notch that you came up with in your sleep. Let's see if it works. No, I'm not okay with that. But what I am okay with is, hey, you run the job briefing today. And if you miss some things, Great, let's go over what you missed. Let's learn for next time. Job briefing is a great opportunity to learn, to teach and coach. And this is that most experienced, least experienced person here. All right. Well, so as we wrap up the PowerPoint section of this, before we go to the dialogue section, all right, the job briefing is a huddle, right? So like I talked about, it's Joe giving that play to the team. It's a chance to build a plan, come up with a plan, and get everybody operating on the same playbook. What makes a really seamless job site is when everybody's operating in the same playbook. If one person's over here doing their thing, another person's over here doing their thing, and the third person's over here doing their thing, it's very confusing. It's not concise. Maybe I got this guy raking, but I know there's another tree that's got to get dropped first, so we just raked it up for nothing. Well, that wouldn't work out well. Let's all be in the same playbook. We're all in the same playbook. We work together. We work stronger. We work more efficient. It's not about compliance. Job briefings are not about compliance. Again, I understand there's a compliance aspect to a job briefing, but our focus for so long in the industry has been about it being a compliance tool. It's a communication tool. It's far greater serving you as a communication tool to get everybody on the same page and operating and identifying the same hazards and how to mitigate these hazards versus it is compliance. If it's compliance, it's going to turn into check the box, yep, move on. You're not going to get anything out of it. This is a chance to communicate, all right? No one ever quit a company due to over communication. It's never going to happen, all right? So I'm not saying your job briefing needs to be 30 minutes, but maybe your job briefing needs to be a little bit longer than 30 seconds, all right? Communicate, and then open up a chance for other people to communicate. I can't tell you how many times I've done a job site and done my pre-climb inspection and get in my mind my route where I'm going to set my tie-in point and get ready to go, set my throw line, pull up my climbing line when someone comes and says, hey, do you see that crack on the backside of that tie-in point you got? You sure you want to be tied into that? What are you talking about? I'll walk around the backside and I missed it. This is a chance when I communicate my job briefing, it's a chance for other people to communicate back to me. Communication is a two-way street, all right? We want to provide insight, all right, into how we can make this a team event. Job briefing is not an individual event, it's a team event. Yes, there is somebody documenting it, somebody leading the job briefing, but it should be dialogue, all right? And then even best, teams huddle. Everybody knows the best teams play on the same playbook every time, all right? I see John here asking if anybody does a post-job briefing. I don't really do post-job briefings, John. What I do a lot of times is I'll encourage my crew leader to ride back from the job site when we were riding more than one person to a vehicle with a different person they rode out to the job site with and ask them how the day went. Ask them what went well, what didn't go well, what was missed, what wasn't missed. But doing a post-job briefing can be a great opportunity. It can be a great opportunity to sit back and go, hey, did we follow our plan? Or did we adjust from our plan? And did we document it correctly? So I think that's a great point there. All right. So we got a few minutes left here. I want to ask for some questions and get some input from you folks and see what you think. I don't want to inundate you guys with job briefing PowerPoint slides because that's going to get really boring really quickly for you and me. All right, so that's just 10 slides on job briefing. I have no more slides than that. I want to make this open to whatever you want to talk about, job briefing, crew leader related, leadership related. It's your webinar and I'm here for you. Electronic job briefings. Yeah, Samuel, on that great thing. I think electronic job briefings are the way of the future. I think that's where we're all going to be going to in the next 5 to 10 years. So if you're already doing electronic job briefings, you're ahead of the curve. I know a lot of companies now that are going towards electronic, CRM systems, customer relation module system management systems. And a lot of those have a job briefing capability inside of them that are electronic. And I think that's great. It's also great to be able to store all that in the cloud and not take up paper everywhere. Right now I've got paper coming back every day from job briefings we got to store in the event that we have something happen and we have to go get that information. So when we went through our event in July, they wanted us to provide job briefings for the last year that involved that crew. So we had to go pull all those job briefings for the last year. So it's electronics a great format. Yeah, absolutely. As long as everybody can sign them. Do I have any that belong to a non-CRM system? I don't off the top of my head. We use Arbor Gold, not pushing their product over anybody else's product. It's the product we use, and they have some capability. There's some other products that are out there that have some capability. What I was just doing is research as much as you can about it and ask as many questions as possible. But I don't have anybody that's not attached to a CRM system. So what's the proper response to somebody with a lack of involvement in job briefing? So when I started teaching, what I found is I learned more material far greater instructing than I ever did taking classes because I over prepared. So I would say one of the best ways to do it is if you have somebody who's not involved is make the job briefing their thing. Maybe you even sit with them and say, hey, you know what? I want you to build the job briefing form that you would use. And let it become their thing. Let them own that project. Let them take over that project and see if you can get them involved that way. How does it work for accredited companies not being paper? That's a great question that I actually can't answer. I'm going to kick to a panelist. Maybe Bob can answer that from a accreditation standpoint. I actually don't know how it works for accreditation. We're an accredited company. We are paper job briefings. So I don't know the answer to that question.
Travis, this is Bob. Yes, a accredited company can use an electronic job briefing. It's just a matter of having your system available for the auditor to take a look at. Or if it's a situation where it's an action after your site visit, just having maybe setting up a web meeting so we could take a look at it. And you could always do printouts as well if you wanted to go that route. All we have to do is just see that it's up and running and being used.
Okay. Yeah. So there you go. There's your answer right there. Thank you, Bob. I appreciate that. If you have something go wrong, definitely have a safety meeting the next day. If nothing else, have that crew get together for a safety meeting. Big events, obviously, more people need to be involved. The way we do it is we have a dry erase board in every office, and the way on the dry erase board it says good decisions and learning moments. Learning moments are those bad decisions, those near misses maybe that or were incidents, they're a learning moment for you. And then good decisions. We want to talk about the good decisions we make as well as some of the bad decisions we make. So I think it's a great idea to have a safety meeting after something goes wrong. See here, anytime the conditions change or the scope of the work changes, such as after lunch, it's a great time to do a job briefing again. If you stop for lunch, if you do a formal, shutdown for lunch, maybe you don't do a full job briefing, but you just kind of go over, hey, what do we do in the morning? What do we do in the afternoon? Kind of go about that way. Should a supervisory visitor be thoroughly briefed if not going to be involved on the work site? I like it. If you're not going to be involved in the work site and you're just there auditing, I'm not sure if you need to be fully briefed and signed in as a worker on the job site. Personally, I love being greeted by a crew leader or greeted by a crew member when I approach a job site, even if I'm there just doing a safety audit. I love having that interaction. I love having that job briefing and them telling me about their job site. So I think it's a great practice to encourage, but I'm not necessarily sure it's required if you're not actually doing the work. How does OSHA feel about electronic? OSHA has no problem with electronic as long as you have a way to provide it to them if they request it. So if you store it all in the cloud, for instance, using Google Forms, I saw that was on here, and you print all that off and you can submit it that way. If you've never been through an OSHA investigation and you're going through one, please contact TCIA or somebody like myself. We'd love to give you some assistance to go through those. There is definitely a chess game that has to be played. And I would be leery about using electronic distribution of my job briefings. I might store my electronic job briefings and print them off, but I wouldn't feel good about giving them a hyperlink to go to where all of our job briefings are stored at. You sometimes don't want to open the door to your house to OSHA. You just want to set them on the back patio and bring tea out to them instead. Sometimes, okay, so hold on a second. So you have multiple job briefings throughout the day because you deviate. Yeah, if it's large deviations, you probably need to stop and talk. If you were going to be doing tree felling operations and now you're going to be doing top-down rigging operations, you probably need to have a job briefing about that. Like, hey, this is a totally different change. But if, say, you were going to start on the apple tree pruning first, we're doing a lot of apple trees right now, and you're like, what, instead we're going to do the full removal of the maple first, I don't know if you need a formal briefing for that as much as like a, hey, real quick, everybody, we're not going to do the apple, we're going to do this first, whatever. So I wouldn't get too bogged down in documenting minor changes to the job briefing. That's why I said, in the job briefing, do roles and responsibilities and keep them vague, but at least specific to the person. So you know where they're going to be at, climb or loft, groundwork, and those kind of things. But don't reassign roles every time something changes like that. So the good decision learning moment idea, yeah, it's just a dry erase board. It's got a line down the middle, and it says good decisions and learning moments. And that's all it says. And then we let people write it up there on the dry erase board, and then we talk about it the next day, and we document those things. They can assign their name to it. They cannot assign their name to it. We leave it open to them. And what we found is it creates really good conversation during a morning meeting because people come in the next day and they see it on the board and they're like, oh, yeah. Oh, I had that happen. Or, oh, tell me more about this. And it just kind of creates communication. It creates dialogue, which is where we don't want to be a tracking system, but our managers do kind of take notice of what's going on, and we have individual company trainers. All of this is when we're operating normally. Right now we're in COVID-19 operation, so essential staff only, so it changed things a little bit. But during normal operation, yeah, we use our dry erase boards to do our near miss reporting and also do our good decisions. So hopefully that answers your question a little bit better. Yeah, definitely get in touch with Peter Gerstenberger at TCIA after you have a major incident. It's always a great idea to involve TCIA as a member benefit. It's also a chance for Peter to kind of help you through that. Peter's done a lot of work with OSHA and really understands how that works. He was actually the second phone call I made when we had our incident. My first phone call obviously was the owner of the company. And then I called Peter and a mentor of mine and said, hey, I've had an incident, help me through this. And they were great resources to help me through that. What other questions do we have? So some of the mitigations for COVID-19. So obviously following CDC guidelines, social distancing 6 feet apart. In our shop where we have our morning meetings, we've put X's down, red X's, so they're 6 feet apart, and we've put only 10 X's down on the shop floor, so we can't have meetings of larger than 10 people. Right now we're in the middle of the startup of our turf and PHC divisions operating, so we have a lot of people on the property. And what we've done is we've staggered start times. We have separate locations for meetings in the morning. If we have to meet more than 10 people, we try to meet outside, weather permits, or we meet in separate groups and do it that way. The other thing we're doing now is crews are going directly to their vehicles, to their assigned vehicle. Each person gets an assigned vehicle of the company right now. And crew leaders are just coming in, meeting with your ops manager and sales team just to understand the day's work and all that. So we're trying to limit meetings to start with. We've got signs literally everywhere about hand washing. We've got hand sanitizer. We've created disinfectant bottles for every truck. We're encouraging cleaning as much as possible. We've even gone as far as to buy antimicrobial guards for all of our door handles and common pumps for diesel pumps and all that kind of stuff. See what else we're doing. We did, because we did get deemed essential in New Hampshire, we did have to furlough some workers off in order to meet the essential need and not be overstaffed. We were deemed essential in Vermont and critical in New Hampshire. So those two, operating in two different states, have different requirements. We can do some work we can do in New Hampshire that we can't do in Vermont and vice versa. So we had to move personnel around. We had to move some different divisions around and relocate the assets to meet the compliance of that. It's a great question about limited contact with clients. We actually have sent out an email to all of our clients. Our sales staff sends out, which kind of gives the sales team, the client, how to interact with sales. Sales has them flag things. Then they call or FaceTime with the client. We do not encourage the client to come out and interact with crews at all, to interact with our sales team at all. Our crew leaders have all been briefed on, in the event that a customer does come out, to keep 6 feet of distance from them at all times. If the customer continues to impede upon that 6 feet distance, respectfully close up shop, and leave. So that's some great things to do. It's part of our job briefing, just kind of going over the COVID-19 and everybody stay apart. Great news is, because we work outside, we're the lowest risk industry for COVID-19 exposure. So that's huge. And then of course, we're following all HIPAA guidelines as far as reporting any possible exposures, reporting any presumptive cases, and following all of that with the CARES Act and the Family First Act. We're not wearing masks in the vehicle because we're only riding one person per vehicle right now. We have offered buffs to everybody in the company and other face masks if they choose to wear that, but we are currently not requiring masks because we've done the one person per vehicle. In the event that they have to ride two to a vehicle due to a vehicle breakdown like that, then we are encouraging masks and we're riding windows open. For those who, so I have a previous background as well in fire rescue. I was fire rescue for 17 years. One thing that help educate people about the virus is, though this virus is claimed to be airborne, it's a droplet airborne. It's not a expelled airborne. So you can't breathe the virus out. You actually have to physically have a droplet leave your mouth and has to land in somebody else's mouth and breathe it in or in their nose. So if you have wind current to displace that movement of air, it really greatly helps things a lot. And also doing things like this, like Zoom. We have weekly meetings on Zoom. Our management team meets on Zoom. Leadership executive team meets on Zoom. So we are getting our fullest from Zoom. So is TCIA. Do you like this format of education? This is the first time TCI has been doing this. Those who have heard me speak for treestuff.com webinars, different format, but I think this is really great. I'm really enjoying it. And I'm really enjoying being able to see the chat running in live time here. It's really wonderful for me. Bob, do you have anything?
Sorry, what was that, Travis?
I didn't know if you had anything you wanted to add about this format and how this is going. People are saying they love this format. This is a great idea.
Oh yeah,
Hey,
great.
Sharon.
Hey, Sharon. If you have any comments, just send them to us. And you know, if there's anything you think about in tomorrow about what we did today, anything you'd like to see, anything different, just send it to us. We're always open to that. My email is rrouse@TCIA. That's RROUSE @TCIA.org. But all of our emails are at our name, first initial, last name @TCIA.org. So feel free to reach out to Stephanie. Feel free to reach out to Arena, Travis, wherever you want to. And we're interested in your feedback, and we're looking at putting on more of these.
Yeah, if there's any topics that you guys want to have done, let us know, and we can try to figure out how to do it. I think there's even a possibility of us probably doing some hands-on skill webinar stuff, such as ropes and knots, rope inspection, gear inspection, those kind of things. I'm a climber, you couldn't tell, so I'm all about those kind of things. And I think it's a great format, and I'm really looking forward to the next few weeks of these. We've got some great speakers coming up next week and the weeks after that, talking different topics about leadership and crew leader. And shameless plug, if you haven't taken TCI's crew leader workshop yet, when things start going back to normal, please sign up for this workshop. Having spoken all over the country and presenting multiple workshops and multiple different trainings, I enjoy the crew leader one the most. I think people get the most out of it, and I think it's our most underutilized position in all of our companies. A lot of times our crew leader we pick, and we really don't know why the crew leader is the position they're in, and this really gives them the tools they need to be a good, successful crew leader and make you a good, successful, efficient business. I don't have anything else, Bob, unless anybody else has got any questions.
Oh, there's a question from Denise. We are looking at putting more of our courses online. We're starting with EHAP, and we're also starting with getting all the testing for our Tree Care Academy series online as well. So you'd still get the book right now, but then you could go online and take the test just to tighten up that process a little. You won't have to print it out and mail it. So that's where we're starting. We are, I think the first thing we're going to do for any kind of virtual major workshop is look at CTSP and try to break that up into pieces. And
that'll be a fun one.
Yeah, pilot that and see how it works. We have a lot of good ideas on it, but as always, a big part of it is the interaction that you do get from going to a workshop. So we're trying to balance that out and just see what makes sense. But we are looking at doing more of them. And are you all set, Travis?
If I got one question here from Michael, I want to answer real quick about consistency of job briefings. So yeah, this is a case where everybody deals with this. It's a problem everybody has. The best way I find to deal with it is when I get a job briefing back from a crew leader that wasn't done, to my standard that I want done. What I do is I give it back to them and make them refill out again. Just kind of it's a mental, hey, you didn't do it right. I'm not gonna do it for you. Here you go, do it again. And generally speaking, it kind of helps them learn that, okay, yep, I can't just kind of get by with this. I kind of get to do it right. And then if you're still having issues, bring them in, have a one-on-one conversation, kind of maybe come figure out why, ask questions of why they're having issues with consistency, why they're having issues with the document. One thing we dealt with is we had a crew leader that had a learning disability. He had dyslexia, and that was a huge concern. So we had to work with that crew leader to make sure they understood how, could read the document and all that, and it flowed in a clear, concise manner so their brain could interpret the data correctly. So ask questions. Don't just assume they don't want to do it or they stink at doing it. Ask those questions and see if you can come up with good answers.
That's a great point, Travis. My daughter has dyslexia, so we deal with that quite a bit. And a lot of people in our industry do have dyslexia or a similar type of learning disability. And sometimes that's the root cause of what's going on. And as Travis said, if you ask some questions, you can draw that out and find out. Most people who have a learning disability or dyslexia or something like that aren't going to bring that out right away. They don't want to talk about it. But you know, a few simple questions and you can get some information from them and then just adjust from there.
The only thing I'll add is if you have a lot of English as second worker or second language workers, make sure your job briefings in both languages is very helpful. That's one thing, you know, we don't deal with it in our company, but I know I see Andrew Wimble's on here, a good friend of mine, and other companies do deal with this in other parts of the country. So making sure that your job briefing can be understood in multiple languages is always very helpful.
Great. Okay, I am going to, thank you, Travis. I'm going to, I'm going to share my screen and let me see. Okay. Okay. I am going to share my screen now. Sorry about that. And what I do want to go over is the upcoming part of the series. So thank you, Travis. We do have a series planned out through May 13th. Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, we are offering business-related webinars. We have a couple of those played out, so look for those. We are setting up a webinar webpage on our website. For this series, every Wednesday at 3 to 4 p.m. Through May 13th, we have a webinar offering based on our crew leader workshop and our crew leader program. So next Wednesday, we have Bill Owen with creating and maintaining a professional image. 29th, we have Skip Kincaid with leading and dealing with crew conflict. May 6th, we have Bob Mead, who's going to go over improving your crew's performance. And Chris Rasmussen on the 13th is going to review effective communication with crews and clients. And from that point, we're going to look and see what we can do and schedule more of them. We believe also by May, we'll start to have the testing components up and running for the Tree Care Academy programs. We'll still need to do paper there, but you can go online and start doing testing for some of our programs. And we're thinking by July, we will have EHAP online, so you can take your crews can take online EHAP programs.